All right, welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast brought to you by Twisted Tea and My Bookie. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who's already cracking open his beer. What's up, you old Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on? I apologize. I'm already about 3 of these in.
Well, we got a great show lined up, buddy. We got the mailbag. This is one of my favorite weekly traditions, mixing it up, getting to the mailbag.
Yeah.
Game of the week interview, little curveball, trying to show love to different teams. Arkansas, A&M. I think this is pivotal. That's not a word. Pivotal. No. Pivotal. There you go. For third time's a charm. For Arkansas and A&M, whoever loses this game, I don't want to say elimination because A&M still got some tough games ahead of them.
Separation, though, man.
Separation. Arkansas can't afford another loss.
Yeah.
A&M with now Conner Weigman. We'll talk about him out. Big matchup. So we reached out to Ty Richardson.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, he's bright and sunny on this Wednesday afternoon over at ESPN Arkansas. Hit that line. And David Nuno from TexAgs to talk about it. I'm fired up, buddy. How are you?
Dude, I'm fired up, pumped up. I can't stay off Twitter. I can't, I'm like the opposite of Sam, I am glued to it. All the positivity, all the negativity, I'm just consuming it because the fan bases are coming alive, man. I feel like that. You're talking about the Arkansas and Texas A&M. You're about to see one of the battered Arkansas syndromes going on up there with Ty, and then you got a little bit of confidence coming out of Texas A&M, and that's what's so good about these games. And it's not just that fan base. It's Kentucky and Florida. It's definitely Tennessee and South Carolina. It's like as soon as one says something, you got 14 of the other fan base bringing it back down. So this is why we love college football, because it is an emotional roller coaster. Sometimes we go through the lows, but when we get to celebrate the highs, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of lows, we got to hit on this real quick. And for anybody that missed it, check it out. Let's see. Bing. It'll be up there. But emergency podcast I did. Conner Weigman out for the season. Yeah. Max Johnson's QB1 now in College Station. So I've kind of already covered that, but we haven't heard your thoughts on it because of Shane. So what's your thoughts and any questions from you?
Well, the biggest thought is you got a starter. In fact, he was the spark you needed to help win that game last week. So lucky. I'm not saying that it's lucky. I guess that's a terrible word, but it's a blessing that you have another QB1 waiting there. If you go back, this win was in the offseason, keeping him on campus, which he's been on record, and we'll play probably the audio clip tomorrow, but Max came out and he says, there was no doubt in my mind I was going to stay here. And I think that is the important part here, is that what Jimbo was able to do in keeping, because a lot of kids did leave, but Max didn't. So what does it look like moving forward? I really hate it for Conner because this was his coming out year. Yeah, he was on the right path, and something that Dave talks about here in a little bit is, he's going to be one of those guys at the end of the year popping up in those quarterback awards, but again, I don't think we're going to have too much of a loss here, but the room gets a little bit dicier because Texas A&M has got a long history of quarterback issues, and after Max, we may have a different type of emergency if he goes down. So I'm not trying to put that evil on this fan base, but let me ask you, I want to kind of pivot from that. Do you think that this is an advantage or disadvantage for Arkansas coming in this game now that Conner's out?
Honestly, I don't think.
Or it doesn't change at all?
It doesn't change.
Okay.
Because I think he was going to play anyway, and I think they've already seen him. They seen him last year in this game. They got tape on him. And the fact that he and Conner are not drastically different in their skill set.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It'd be different if one was Jaden Daniels,
Right.
and Conner Weigman. I mean, they're drastically different in their style. So, not a big thing, but one other thing I just kind of thought of that it's kind of sad. Obviously, the injuries to Conner is the most sad, but A&M, they've been waiting a long time for a quarterback, and they finally got a legit big-time guy in Conner Weigman, and he got hurt. So I feel terrible for those fans. But thankfully they got Max Johnson.
Spin zone, though, we were kind of coming into a little bit of a quarterback controversy, too. You know, that's something we talked about was if this injury isn't that bad, are we going to hear we should be starting Max over Conner? And now you kind of took all that off the table. The locker room is going to be all behind Max. There's not going to be anything split. So I think the silver lining here is, again, we've not had we don't have a quarterback competition.
Yeah. One other thing, Shane, before we get to the mailbag. This is wild. So I don't know if it's legitimate, but I even hate doing this during the season, this rumor mill and conference realignment, all this. But Gene Sapakoff, he's on Feinbaum all the time. That's about the only thing I know about him. But he covers Clemson and South Carolina, in the state of South Carolina, obviously. And he wrote an interesting column on Wednesday, Shane, saying it looks like Clemson's ACC departure may be sooner. And he says the Gamecocks are fretting. And according to this article, it's paywalled for anybody that missed it. But basically, to summarize it, he thinks Clemson will get an invitation to the Big Ten along with North Carolina, and that will likely, the hope is that will spur the SEC to say, whoa, why don't you come to the SEC, which they would much prefer, I would think, go to the SEC than go to the Big Ten. So basically suggesting, the SEC is not after them, but the SEC may add them to keep them from the Big Ten, which I think is a move you'd have to make if they're going to the Big Ten. But I also wonder, again, I'm not trying to call this guy out or anything, but I wonder how, people float information so that it can get out there, so that this gets on the SEC's radar and say, they're going to Big Ten. How about that?
That's like, what's his name? The sports agent that keeps popping up ever so often.
Oh, yeah, Jimmy Sexton?
Yeah, Jimmy Sexton. Yeah, they're thinking he's taking offers. You know, Deion coming to the SEC.
And next thing you know, he's got a big extension.
I don't know, man. I mean, obviously this is a topic that has been popping up before A&M and Mizzou came over here.
Right.
Clemson, I don't know. I don't know if it's beneficial for. I think that's the thing. We've heard Sankey say, we're not going to do anything that doesn't benefit the SEC, and so you're weighing it. We're not going to be bullied into bringing Clemson in here, and so I think you have to ask yourself, if the Big Ten takes those two programs, is that detrimental to the SEC? I don't think it is. But what does it look like 20 years from now? I think that's the big one. Is, kids right now know the SEC. They know that this is a dominant, conference. But 20 years from now, they're not going to know Clemson ACC. They're going to know Clemson Big Ten. And then all of a sudden you're looking like, did we make a mistake by letting these guys come in here to our footprint in South Carolina and North Carolina, which we get a lot of talent out of? So I don't know. But if you do that, they're going to go down here. They're going to grab Florida State,
NC
that's what
I was going to say.
So it's like,
where does that end? Miami wants in. Virginia Tech.
They're going to expand, but I think the SEC is going to have to at some point, because it's a down year. I mean, I'm trying not to be negative about the conference right now, but right now we're not the talk anymore. There's a lot of people are saying, hey, Ohio State's the team, Texas, which is about to be ours anyway, is the team, Oregon's the team, and they're outside the SEC. But, I don't think that one down year we should panic and just bring all these random teams into our conference. I think let's let the dust settle. Let's get Texas in here. Let's get Oklahoma in here. Dude, after that, we got more than enough. We don't need any of these other shit teams. South Carolina, that's for you, baby. That's my one good deed for you guys this week.
All right, you ready to answer some mailbag questions?
Hell yeah, man. Let's do it.
All right, and then I did something different this week, Shane.
Yeah.
I posted not only on Twitter, so we appreciate, we got some Twitter comments here, but I posted it also on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So I'm reaching out to everybody to give everybody an opportunity. And we're going to feature a couple YouTube comments here. This one's from the Barn Door.
All right.
On YouTube. What upcoming Week 5 win is more likely to justify postseason ambitions? A&M, Florida, or Tennessee? So he's basically saying which win could, propel one of these teams to a better postseason, better season, essentially. A&M playing Arkansas, Florida playing at Kentucky, or Tennessee hosting South Carolina. Which win basically will mean more to of those three?
That's a good one, Mike. Or Barn Door?
The Barn Door.
All right, I like that one. So, you could argue all three of them.
Yeah.
Because they're all pivotal matchups. They're all SEC opponents. And you talked about separation Saturday. I think I'm going to just do it in order. I think Tennessee losing would be detrimental.
Wait. That's part 2 of his question.
Oh.
So just who
benefits more?
Yeah.
Oh, benefits more? Well, then same. I'll just stick with Tennessee. Tennessee
really?
Benefits. Yeah.
Winning at home over South Carolina, which has a losing record against FBS teams.
You're saying between Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Florida. Yeah, because I guess it's just how you feel about the games too. That I think the Florida-Kentucky game is a deciding one. For second in the East, could be arguably second in the East, but Tennessee completely goes off the map if they lose this one. You know what I'm saying? Because they are losing to what quote unquote an inferior opponent. Texas A&M win is big, but it's not huge. Alabama, LSU, those are their games. And nothing. I'm not knocking Arkansas or anything like that. But same thing with Florida. They dropped to Kentucky. It doesn't matter because they still got Georgia to play. Tennessee drops two SEC opponents, then they're done, man. So that's kind of why I'm leaning more toward that one.
Well, I'm going Florida.
Yeah,
I think it helps them the most because it's a road one. It's one This is another one Billy needs bad. He's only 0-1, so that's not fair to put it all on him. But this is one Florida needs because they've been losing to Kentucky too often for their fan base. So I think this continues the,
that's a great question.
Billy's building something.
Yeah.
Players are buying in. We're an underdog yet again. Another win as an underdog in conference play. I think the buy-in, the recruiting. I think for Florida, they are the ones that benefit the most. But the Barn Door also flipped it and said which loss is likely to spell disaster for the rest of the season. You went Tennessee.
Not disaster. No, I would say the worst would be Texas A&M losing.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah, losing to Arkansas, and I'm not saying Arkansas is less than or anything like that, but you're starting to pick up momentum. Now you got a quarterback injury now, and then now it feels like 22 all over again. So the loss that cannot be afforded this week is the Aggies.
Yeah. All right, another YouTube question, Shane, from Adam Herndon. Once considered the number 1 draft prospect 2 years ago, do you think Spencer Rattler has played his way back into the conversation of possibly being a top 5 quarterback and possibly a first-rounder in the upcoming draft?
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, I can't. Surely at the end of the year we're gonna do our rankings again. I would love to see where you put the quarterbacks because at this moment, now again we're talking small sample size. We're talking 4 teams and trying to figure out if Spencer's legit or not. I'm in on the Spencer camp, and in fact, out of all the quarterbacks in the SEC, he'd be my leading one right now. And what I see from him is excelling with pieces missing around him. Like you could point down to LSU and say, "There's your best quarterback," but look who he's working with. Look who's blocking for him. Look who you can hand the ball off to. Mm-hmm. South Carolina doesn't have that luxury. Their defense isn't a top shelf defense, full of 5-star talent that's going to make it in the NFL. They're just hustlers. They're fighting. But when Spencer's on that field, he's given those guys every opportunity to succeed. That's what you want at the next level. Yeah. Because you can get the pieces in the NFL. You can go out and recruit for that or pay them for that, Right. So, yeah, right now I think he's definitely worked his way into a top 5.
I think based on his play,
yeah,
yes, absolutely. There's no question.
Him coming back was to get better and make odds better and prove to the NFL that he is a legitimate quarterback. So what people say behind the scenes, we don't know. And I'm not going to give that any stock because it's just hearsay up to that point. So, I think I'm gonna pick a guy that's doing it on the field, and he's doing it with less because when I give him more in the NFL, he's just going to succeed. So, yeah, he's worked his way. Now, again, we're not in October even. But at this moment, recording this show, he is by far the best quarterback in the league.
How about Matt from YouTube? Do you still think it's possible for the SEC to get 2 teams into the playoff? And absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
I think people overreact. Hell, I do it more than anybody. But people are overreacting to the slow start. And here's the path, Shane. Georgia goes undefeated.
Yeah.
Gets knocked off by LSU in the SEC championship. They're both getting in my opinion.
Anybody. I think Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, any of them win out and beat Georgia in the SEC championship. How do you keep the SEC champ out of the college football playoffs? The SEC that has owned the college championship trophy for how many years now? So I don't think that's there is a scenario. But again, other things happen. You know how this works. Something's got to happen. Texas got to lose. Oregon's got to lose. Ohio State's got to lose. Clemson with Florida State's got to lose. That's another one. And they beat LSU. So yeah. There's a lot of scenarios out there. But is it likely? Yeah, it's likely. But it really depends on how good Georgia is. Because if Georgia just steamrolls somebody in the SEC championship, no one lost team's good in the end.
Yep. How about Caleb on Twitter? Can the Razorbacks get back on track and win 2 out of the next 4? And here's their next 4. A&M and Arlington, of course. At Ole Miss, which has got LSU this week. At Alabama, and then Mississippi State at home. Can they win 2 out of the 4?
Yeah.
I absolutely think they can.
This is this week will dictate if that's possible.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy, but this is not supposed to be a blowout. This is supposed to be a one score game, which Arkansas historically has not been too good at, and it's definitely in this series. But if they get this one, you're telling me Ole Miss isn't winnable? You're telling me Alabama right now isn't winnable? Especially because strength on strength.
Yeah.
I think obviously Alabama's going to have success on offense, but will they have enough to keep up with KJ Jefferson? So I think that's going to be a fun game. Can't wait to talk about that one. So, but it's possible. And Mississippi State, you look at all the games except last week. They've lackluster performance. Still lost last week against South Carolina. So yeah, there's an opportunity that they could just catch fire and we'll have Ty on, and he'll sing a different tune that week, won't he?
All right, how about Big Blue Boss on Twitter? I wonder who he's a fan of.
Yeah. He's been very active. Yeah.
How much will Kentucky need to beat Florida by for you to, he's throwing both of us in here, to admit that Kentucky is for real?
Just win.
1 point, yeah.
Yeah, just win. That's it.
Shane, I mean, I get it. People get angry because we're like 4-0, but if you're not Big Blue Boss, you beat Ball State, you beat Eastern Kentucky, you beat Akron, and you beat Vanderbilt. Let's remove the Kentucky from that. If Tennessee beat Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and Vanderbilt, you think Big Blue Boss would be like, them Vols are legit? No, he'd be like, they ain't played a damn. Wait till they meet them Kentucky Wildcats. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think you got to take your big blue shades off here.
Yeah.
I don't get where people are like, why you hate Kentucky? We never talk bad about Kentucky. We have got to be the number one SEC show that talks too good about Kentucky. We're just saying, hey, I don't know if they're any good or not.
I think, well, with Kentucky, we're hard on them.
Right.
Because they are playing Akron. They are playing
right.
Eastern Kentucky and all these other stupid schools. So Vanderbilt was the first test in the SEC, but was it? You know, I think this is separation, you know, you're talking about. This is where we really identify how good or bad Kentucky is. We gave them a hard time because we were expecting more. I'm expecting blowouts with Akron.
Right.
Second half, I want to see guys in there. I don't even know who the hell they are. You know what I'm saying? That's what we want, and we just couldn't quite get that. But they're figuring it out. And if they beat Florida Gators, then absolutely 1 point. I'm crowning them as at that moment the second best team in the East.
Yep.
Whoever wins that game right now, in my opinion, I don't know about you, Mike, but at this moment, whoever wins that game is going to be number 2 in the East for me.
Yeah. How about John Chavis on Twitter? He asks every week. He asks great questions.
Chief. Love that guy.
His cousin Shane going on a hunger strike until Nico plays.
Oh, man. Wouldn't that be something?
They'd have to play him, right?
Yeah, they'd have to. I'd be sitting out. No, I'm you know, the whole Nico thing, I kind of wanted to see it last week, clearly.
Right.
You know, and I'm not saying I didn't see the MRI photo floating around and I get some warm fuzzies down there, but truth be told, Heupel's with Nico every day, and if he felt like Nico was the guy, I am confident that he would be out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's some reason that he's not. So I've got more faith in my coach than I do in my gut in this scenario of Nico being a better quarterback than I expect. It's the whole greener grass scenario. We're going to get opportunities to see him, but we can also give him opportunities to grow and become that quarterback one. So till that happens, I'm on the Milton train, and maybe he figures it out this week. You know, get my Milton cut back out. You know, I'd love to do that.
King Festy, Shane, on Twitter.
Festy?
Festy. I don't know.
Okay.
How many miles will cousin Shane walk if South Carolina beats Tennessee?
0. 0. I ain't walking no more. No, I am. I have been trying to walk, and in fact, working with a good buddy. He's going to be kind of coaching me along here and get me back in form, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And so I will be walking. I just ain't going to be walking because of a bet, and sure as hell ain't going to be doing 13 miles. So that when you do something like that and you're not used to doing it, you're out there, you're thinking about it, and it was torture, man. Especially I can't explain the last 2 miles. I can't explain the last half mile. The half mile was harder than the 12 and a half before, believe it or not. I just thought,
really?
I never thought that rider's block, they say, or whatever. I couldn't. It was all I could do to get right foot, left. I mean, I was just telling that foot to go, telling this foot to go, trying not to look at my watch and figure out how much more time I've got left. But it was brutal. So I had plenty of 6 hours to convince myself to never make a stupid bet like that again. So
thank God they didn't lose by 19.
Fuck. We almost had it. I don't know if I could have done it, man. I don't think I could. I'm still to this day surprised I got 13 in, you know?
And then the number one question, several people asked it, so I'll just lump them all in together. Where is Cousin Shane's weekend update?
Yeah. Cousin Shane fumbled this one. I'm still working. I work outside of the pod. Unfortunately, I can't do this 100% of the time, and we're working there. And you guys can help. We got sponsors. Take advantage of them. Get on Game Time. Buy a damn cup that you're going to drink out of anyway. So you're supporting your team more than us. when you buy that cup. And, put promo code SEC. You get some money off of it. It helps us.
Yep.
My bookie.
My bookie.
Get on there. That's the one. I forget me finally getting one right last week, Mike. I got it by half a point. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like I just blew the doors off this thing. But up to that point, I am 1-8 or something like that.
Yep.
If you just fade me at this point, yeah, you would have lost last week, but you would have won 8 times before then. You'd be fine. Throw $100 in there. They give you 50, and then play that with that free money at the end of the year. Cash out, but you helped the pod. You had some fun. You put a little money on the game. Promo code on that one's that SEC. That's at my bookie. It's a legit website. I don't know. I get it. They don't have an app. So who cares? Get on the website, get on your phone. It looks like an app. I don't know. Every time I get on there, it looks like an app. As I'm watching my account grow from last week. That was nice. So, but yeah, that's what we're doing. We're independent. We don't have a ESPN budget. We don't have a Fox News budget or none of those guys. We're doing it ourselves. But the reason we want to do it that way, Mike, is so that we can be independent. We can say what we think. We could drink beer. We can say cuss words. We can, we can just be
on a
us.
Mike and Shane budget.
Yeah, I mean, do you not hear the noise outside? I'm literally getting gutters right now. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, man, I'm a baller on a budget. So, but there'll be a day, and hopefully sooner than later, I can do this full time. And but when I do have free time, I'm a scenario. I just want you guys to see, and not that you care. But maybe somebody cares. But I work 40 hours a week. Okay. And then I come over here. We do a podcast. There's prep work. Mike does most of that stuff, almost all of it. He gets it set up for me. We're talking notes and stuff like that. We get on here. I do a show. And then I run to my daughter's softball game. Or then I, spend a little time with the wife. We go out to eat or whatever. It's like during college football season, this is my life. And I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. Truth be told, I do it just to hang out with Mike sometimes, Like we had really no relationship before we started this venture, But now he's like a brother to me. So, I said it. I appreciate everybody, all the support that we get. I do it because you guys need it. You love it. And if it's an hour of entertainment, I can provide somebody and put a smile on their face, I'll do it. So.
Yeah. Well said, Shane. You're a lot more positive than our buddy Ty. Let's get over to our interview, Ty Richardson, to preview this big Arkansas A&M game. So we're pleased to be joined by one of our favorites, and not only one of our favorites, but our favorite time of the year, because it's Arkansas, it's Texas A&M. That means we got to have Ty Richardson hit that line, ESPN, Arkansas, on the show. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Mike, it's been a while, man. It's good to catch up. Like you said, it's a big week. I can't wait to get my heart broken again and get ripped by A&M fans in my mentions. I look forward to it every year, and I'm just setting myself up once again.
Right, and hey, I didn't prepare you for this, so maybe this can't make the cut, but your buddy, he's Chandler Carson. He said, be sure to ask Ty what he texted me this morning about the game. Can you share? And you could be as X-rated here as you would like to be.
Yeah, I just texted him. I said, if we lose this game close again, I may off myself. I don't know if I can go through another, and you can put that on the channel or not. I don't really care, but I don't know if I can go through another painful loss like this ever. Mike, I can detail the ending of every single game since 2014. The 2013 game was close. They won by like 12. Johnny Manziel came to Fayetteville. College Station, they ripped us open. But I can tell you everything that happened from 2014 up till last year, every single painful memory that I have, with the exception of 2021, thank you, Traylon Burks and company. Every other thing has just been agonizing and PTSD-like for Arkansas fans.
Right, and I feel your pain because we have the same thing with Tennessee, Florida. So I'm right there with you. But going into a matchup like this, being the underdog, that's where you want to be. You don't want to be favored in a game that you've not been able to beat. So we'll get into that in just a second. But what's the latest? Anything you're hearing on Rocket Sanders? Do you think he's going to play in this game?
Well, if you read different articles, whether it's Hog Sports, Whole Hog Sports, Hog Beat, whatever, some of the local media outlets here, It sounds like Rocket's doing a lot more this week in the course of the first 2 days, especially Tuesday, than he was at any week prior. Plus, Pittman's comments lead me to believe that he's going to play on Saturday. Now, I don't think he's going to start. I don't necessarily think he's going to be the impact player we've seen in previous weeks, but even a couple plays, as long as he feels like he's good to go, could definitely have an impact on this game. Mike, I think he ultimately suits up on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if Arkansas wins, it's going to be because KJ has a great performance. I put him number 1 in the quarterback rankings before the season, and that's a projection of what I thought the season would be. And not that he's been bad by any means, but I don't think he's quite lived up to the number 1 spot yet, although he kind of caught fire against LSU. Do you think that he is now more comfortable in Dan Enos' system and everything? Because that's kind of what I saw in that LSU game. And if we get that KJ for the rest of the year, he will be number 1. What's your thoughts on KJ so far, and if he can continue that against A&M?
My couple things there. One, he went up against the best quarterback in the SEC in Jaden Daniels. I put Jaden ahead of KJ, and I didn't want to be right, but I think I was proved right this past Saturday night. I mean, Daniels was terrific in that second half. Arkansas had no business stopping him. KJ has started to find some chemistry with Luke Has, their freshman All-American tight end. At least that is what I think he's going to be. Tyrone Broden, the transfer from Bowling Green, was inserted into the starting lineup over Jaden Wilson. They moved Isaac Tesla to the slot, kept Andrew Armstrong where he is. So they've started to develop some syncrasy there. And the rushing attack made LSU vulnerable at points, not just KJ running, but Rashad Dubinion and other guys during the course of that game. So it was very balanced on Saturday night. I mean, LSU really didn't stop them. Arkansas stopped themselves in the red zone. And the Tigers, especially in the passing game, didn't have many answers for KJ Jefferson. What I'm hoping is, like you're saying, that parlays into the final regular season, 8 games remaining, and potentially a postseason appearance as well, because I just don't think he has the same weapons that Daniels has, which might make Daniels a little better. But KJ is going to be a factor in every single game he plays this fall, and there's not many quarterbacks, if any other quarterback the rest of the way, that are going to be better than him.
Yeah, and to your point, one advantage that Jaden Daniels has is a much better offensive line. So that's what I wanted to ask you next about the offensive line for the Razorbacks. What's the deal? I mean, we all know Sam Pittman, the best offensive line coach in the country before he got that head job. Is Cody Kennedy the problem? Is injuries? What's the deal? Why is it that Arkansas is struggling up front? And I mean, they literally had the ball as close as you could physically have to the end zone against LSU. And I know LSU's a good team, but you got to be able to punch those in. They punched those in early. That they may have won that game. So what's your thoughts on why the offensive line is struggling so much?
And Mike, it's a fair question. And it's one that Pittman's been frustrated with because he knows that's supposed to be his expertise. And I don't blame him for being mad when the question's asked. I would be frustrated if our radio was questioned because of the lack of content or the foul content or whatever, or the podcast, whatever the case may be. Same with you. So because you take pride in yours, I take pride in mine. He takes pride in his football team, but particularly on the offensive line. They lost Ricky Stromberg. He is a Washington Commander. You lost Dalton Wagner. He was a right tackle, played a lot of games. I think he was on a practice squad at one point. Luke Jones also gone. So you had your tackles and your center. They moved Limmer over to center, who's a preseason SEC guy. You got Latham right next to him, and then Joshua Braun, the transfer from Florida. It's taken Braun a little bit, but they had a pretty solid game up the middle, especially going against Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo. And then you look at the two tackles, Andrew Shamley, kid from Maumelle, Arkansas, and then Patrick Kudus, who's been the Memphis guy. He went to Christian Brothers in Memphis, young left and right tackle. And so there's some areas where you think you can exploit. They're able to do that. The guy that was projected to start is probably going to start if he ever gets healthy is Devin Manuel, the Louisiana kid who played against LSU but still didn't start. Still, he's gutting through some injuries out. They just haven't necessarily adapted as quick as maybe Cody Kennedy and Sam Pittman once. When you pile that up with a new offensive coordinator, new schemes, new phrases, new vernacular, it just doesn't necessarily necessitate to being a great start. But I'll say this about them. I know they had the 6 false starts, and I think the holding penalty combined between the offensive line and the tight ends, but they they made a push. I mean, LSU was getting knocked off the ball several times. There were some 3rd-and-1 situations. I know the red zone, again, due to penalties and just mental mistakes, but you have to like balance the penalties and mental mistakes, but the fact that they may have had their best game all season. So it's somewhere in between. They got to play good against A&M. A&M has some pass rushers, guys that can get in the backfield. I don't know if we should expect a Miami-Florida debacle where Arkansas is just passing all over them, but you would like to build off what you did in Baton Rouge last week, Mike.
Yeah, and so far, well, until last week, I mean, the defense was kind of the story of the season for the Razorbacks. A tremendous turnaround. They're forcing turnovers, but they've been giving up big plays. BYU stands out, and obviously last week against LSU, they stopped them the first 3 possessions, and then I don't believe they stopped them a single time after that last week in Tiger Stadium. Was the defense exposed in that game last week, or do you think that's more of going back to what you said, Jane Daniels, best quarterback in the SEC in your opinion, 2 outstanding receivers, and they just got the better of them that day?
Yeah, I mean, when you combine Malik Neighbors and is it Brian Thomas or Brian Robinson? It's Brian Thomas Jr., right? Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, that's maybe the best 1-2 punch, but now you have to play Aniyah Smith and Evan Stewart, which Bobby Petrino is going to get them in situations. And this is a factor to watch on Saturday. I think they're going to either start or play significantly Jalen Braxton, who's a true freshman from Frisco, Texas. I mean, right down the road from AT&T Stadium. And I'm curious how he responds, not just to the talent that he's facing. And I know he's played in that stadium before. Mike, it's one thing to play in that stadium in front of 10,000. It's another thing to play in front of 60,000. So that's an area of the game that I'm really intrigued to watch. They had the worst passing defense in all of college football this past year. They looked good through the first 2 games. Still have a solid rush defense. Got gashed a little bit in the LSU game, but you got to be able to stop the run against Texas A&M. They have a two-headed monster, it looks like. If you can put Max Johnson into 3rd and long situations, he has escapability. You got to watch for that, but at least gives you a chance. They're also going to get Malik Chavis back, it looks like, which is good for this secondary unit, but it starts with up front. The reason they were successful in the first half, Mike, against LSU, they got pressure to Daniels. They were getting to him. Second half, there was no pressure. Denbrock, LSU's OC, did a great job and really countered everything that Travis Williams was trying to try. We know Bobby Petrino makes great second half adjustments. Travis Williams, Arkansas DC, has to counter those at some point, or it could be a bloodbath for his defense in the second half.
Well, it's funny you mentioned AT&T Stadium. I mean, to my knowledge, this is the final year of the contract.
One more after this.
One more. Okay, so God, this never end? Because I've heard media people from Arkansas say, "Hey, I'm never going to that damn stadium again." I can only imagine how the fans feel about it. We got to end this, right?
Yeah, it's going to end. I mean, Ross Bjork has been very open. We want to play in Kyle Field. We just renovated. He spent umpteen $1 million. Hunter Yurachek has to be a little more guarded because of who owns the stadium and who owns that team, being Jerry Jones. My guess is once the contract ends, they'll go home and home, and they will try and play in that stadium once in the next 6 years or so, try and find a Baylor, a Texas Tech, an Oklahoma State, and Nebraska, kind of a regionally based team that wants to get into Dallas and recruit. But as far as playing in that stadium every year, I don't see Arkansas doing it. I also see the game in War Memorial Stadium, the other neutral site game that Arkansas plays at Little Rock. I see that most likely discontinuing, but politics could get involved, and that's going to be very intriguing if that ends up playing out like it may have done the last time that contract was signed.
Mm-hmm. So what scares you more, like Freddie Krueger, Jason, or Texas A&M?
Probably A&M, man. And people ask me all the time, because, I mean, you're an Arkansas kid, you're supposed to hate Texas, right? And I don't like burnt orange, but they ask me, why do you hate Texas? It's because we keep losing the Aggies every stinking year. And the Aggie L is embarrassing. Their colors are horrific. The fact that they just have male cheerleaders, frankly, is sexist, if I'm going to be quite honest. But those are just kind of like, those aren't the big thing. The big thing is they just keep winning. Now, the older Arkansas fans look at A&M as not just a little brother, but like a distant cousin, because Arkansas used to kick their ass consistently. The The win totals aren't even close, and Arkansas still has a pretty wide margin. But if they keep losing like this, not only are you losing out recruits because A&M's coach, if the kids decide between Arkansas and A&M, it's like we beat these guys 10 out of 11 years. Why do you want to go there? Amongst various other things, more money. There's other things Arkansas would have to overcome in that. You have to give yourself an advantage when recruiting, not just Texas A&M, now Texas, Oklahoma with them entering the league. This is something Greg McElroy has spoken to, and he's 100% dead on. Texas A&M coming to the league has hurt Arkansas tremendously since they joined in 2012. Now, since that time, Arkansas, to my knowledge, has had 2 winning seasons in the Southeastern Conference. I believe the only ones are 2015 when they went 5-3, 8-5 overall, and then the other season was during Sam Pittman's second year, where they went 9-4. They were either 4-4 or 5-3, but that's horrific. That's a decade of just mediocrity, and that's one of the many reasons. Not great head coaches, but that has added to Arkansas's lack of winning, Mike, and it's not going to get any easier with Oklahoma and Texas entering the league starting next year.
Yeah. And how big is this game tied to having, because I don't see any path to Arkansas having a really good to great season if they don't win on Saturday. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, this is your meal ticket. Go eat it. This isn't a great Texas A&M team. It really is never going to be under Jimbo Fisher, I don't believe. Maybe he strikes lightning in a bottle. I know they had that really good team in the COVID year where they narrowly lost to Alabama, but you pointed out that wasn't even his quarterback. Kellen Mond was already he was brought in as a transfer or already on campus, I'm forgetting, when Jimbo arrived. And again, losing out on Conner Weigman stinks. And I really do feel bad for the A&M fan base from that perspective, because if there's anyone that knows about injuries affecting Arkansas or affecting college football teams, it's Arkansas fans. But, I mean, you've got to find a way to give this game to your original question. And if you're an Arkansas fan, I don't know how you can be 100% confident that you're going to do that based on the track record against these guys. Doesn't matter who's the coach, doesn't matter the players on either side of the ball. You just always seem to blow it at the tail end of the game. And I'm going to be the opposite of cloud 9 if they somehow, some way choke this game away again.
Well, you sound pretty optimistic. So tell me, who you got winning the football game?
I mean, I honestly have A&M winning. I don't know what's going to happen during the course of the game. It's about 6.5 point spread, depending on what service you go to. I don't know how you can be confident as an Arkansas fan, despite even playing well against LSU on the road. To me, it's just so hard to overcome a losing record as a fan. Now, I'm not necessarily looking from the player's vantage point, but the fan. And so I'm supposed to be an unbiased observer. I'm not, as you can see by what I'm donning right now. But I've got the Aggies winning, and myself contemplating on driving into a ditch on the way back from Dallas to Arkansas. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition or not. I hate this weekend. I hate this game so much, and I put myself through it every single year.
Yeah. Well, we got a call in line, so maybe after the game, if things go well, either if they go positive or negative, we would love to have a call in from Ty Richardson. Before you go, thoughts and prayers. We'll hope in case if they fall, we'll be praying for you, Ty. But before you go, can you tell the audience where can they find you?
Yeah, Mike, I always appreciate how you do this for all your guests. It's at Ty Sports Radio on X. I got to get used to saying that. The Morning Rush airs every week from 6 to 9 a.m. weekdays on ESPN Arkansas and hitthatline.com. So we'll see how Monday's show and the post-game show goes after 11 o'clock. I guess the game will probably get done about 2:30. So you'll see if I'm in a foul mood or a jovial mood about 2:30 on Saturday, Mike. Hopefully me and Shane will be smiling together. Is there a better smile after a win than cousin Shane? I mean, my gosh, my brother who loves you guys, he is, anytime like Shane posts anything where he's smiling, he's like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So hopefully we'll have you guys on Saturday night against the Cox, us against the Aggies. Hopefully we'll be in a joyous mood on Saturday rather than the opposite of that, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. We'll can't wait to have you back on.
You got it. Go Hogs.
Ooh, boy. I mean, when you listen to Ty, Arkansas, yeah, they're going to get killed according to Ty. Not to us, but according to Ty.
Come on, Ty. I get it, man.
I compared it though to the Tennessee, Florida.
Yeah.
That's his Florida.
Yeah.
That's the one he just can't will himself to his team winning, you know?
And they know it. Texas A&M knows it. They're confident. They're cocky. And they know it. They know they're going to win. They don't care if it's in Jerry's World. They don't care if it's in College Station.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny listening to these coaches. I heard Jimbo earlier this week, and he was talking about it. He goes, a lot of the kids that are on our team come from this area, and they watch the Cowboys, and so it's like a dream for them to go in there in Jerry's World. Arkansas, it's the total opposite. They may be even from there, you know what I'm saying, but they hate that damn place. So it's the last time we got to watch it, right?
Well, Ty says 2 more.
Oh.
I was wrong about that.
Yeah. Well, it'd be nice to close out with 2 wins, though. Yeah. So Arkansas, Ty, hang in there. Vegas is never wrong, but sometimes they're wrong. It's going to be a close game.
Yeah.
It's going to be a close game. And
it always is down there.
It could be your year. It could be your.
Yep. But not according to David Nuno of Texas. Let's kick it over.
Because they never lose to Arkansas.
All right. Hey, we're pleased to be joined by one of the best in the SEC landscape, none other than David Nuno over there at TexAgs. He's the director for broadcast media. David, thank you so much for joining the show.
Michael, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's your show is must-watch television and must-watch media, if you will. Everybody who follows the SEC in college football is very aware of what you're doing over here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it was funny because you had me on TexAgs this week, so go check it out if you haven't seen that yet. But I thought it was kind of funny. You were like, you were doing TV before, right? And I'm like, no, I'm just some Yahoo that somehow I built this into something. But I'm glad I can fool people to think I have that kind of background.
Well, you know what it is you were telling me your resume. I'm like, dude, you've worked everywhere. So you've done great work, man. So I am happy to be on your show. And I know we tried to do it during SEC Media Days. Happy to do it now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know today, obviously, a sad day there in College Station. So I got to lead with this. We had breaking news, and it's been since confirmed by Billy Lucci. Of course, everybody knows who that is over there at TexAgs. But Conner Weigman, injury, a lot more significant than originally thought. And by all accounts, his season is done. Thoughts on just that terrible news there?
Devastating, honestly, but not surprising. And I don't mean that because it's Texas A&M and we have battered Aggie syndrome. It's more because we have seen this the last few years with Texas A&M. Outside of Kellen Mond, you look at the last host of A&M starting quarterbacks, they've all gotten hurt. Since my time at TexAgs in 2021, I went to A&M, so I've experienced a lot of this. But I joined TexAgs in 2021. Haynes King named your starter. He goes down in Game 2 against Colorado. That season could have been a more special year, depending on what you thought about Haynes afterwards. But he goes down. Zach Calzada has to start the rest of the way. Plays great against Alabama, but honestly, probably wouldn't have finished the season had they had other quarterbacks on the roster because he got banged up as well. He goes down. Last year, Haynes King starts. They bench him after the App State game. Max Johnson comes in, plays really well. What happens? He breaks, he gets a fracture. So we move on, and it just becomes this continued story. Haynes comes in last year again and gets banged up, and then you've got Conner Weigman coming in. And then this year, Conner Weigman plays admirably. I mean, he played awesome. Like a guy that, had he continued down that trajectory, maybe would have been in the conversation for some of those big awards we talk about. And he goes down. So this has become commonplace, unfortunately, for Texas A&M losing the quarterbacks. But as Max Johnson said a long time ago, and he said it during his presser on Saturday, he never thought about transferring. He thought he was a QB1 material. He is QB1 material. You look throughout the SEC, he'd be starting at a host of places and some national powers as well. Look, it's not an ideal scenario to ever lose your QB1, but you have a QB1 level guy ready to go. And I think Max can do an admirable job. I don't know if it changes the trajectory of the season because teams are going to start coming after him differently than they were planning for Conner. I think you win a lot of games because of Conner Weigman, and you can win games with Max Johnson as well.
Does it change anything specifically just for this weekend, do you think? Max Johnson going up against Arkansas, he played so well against them last season. And I have to believe, I don't know, you would know a lot better than I, but I would assume they were probably preparing for Max Johnson to start and play this entire game all way through. So I don't know if it changes anything, but what's your thoughts on that?
My thing, I think, it changes the way you attack A&M a little bit, because we do know that one of the things that has gotten Arkansas this year is running quarterbacks, right? And I would not put Max in the running quarterback department, but I would say he can run, right? He ran well against Arkansas last year at Jerry World, and he ran a little bit this past weekend. So he can run, but he's not that kind of guy. What he can do, though, is throw it over the top, and maybe throws a prettier ball over the top than Conner Weigman, to be honest with you. That's an area where Arkansas has struggled. A&M as well. I recognize the secondary has been a problem. They didn't have to face any fire against Auburn, but we saw what Miami was able to do. So that's an area that I think they'll open up. They're going to probably go deep, and if Arkansas takes the playbook out of the Miami game, they're going to take away those deep shots and force A&M to throw over the middle. If they have a healthy crew of wide receivers, Evan Stewart, Noah Thomas, who's missed a couple of games, Ja'Day Walker, Moose Muhammad, and of course the emergence of Jake Johnson, Max's brother, at tight end, they'll be able to throw over the middle. But if not, it could be a problem.
What's your confidence level that that Miami performance, specifically by the defense, that was just an outlier? Because the defense looked phenomenal last weekend against Auburn. They were harassing those quarterbacks. What was it? I may have these numbers wrong, but I believe it was 7 sacks, 15 tackles for loss. I mean, that's otherworldly in a conference game. And Auburn, I mean, there were plays to be made by those quarterbacks. They simply weren't making them. I think that's more of a credit to the Aggies and their front seven getting after them and harassing them all day. What's your confidence level that DJ Durkin turn this defense around and we won't see another Miami level performance?
I'm not there yet. And I'm not saying that they're not going to be better than they were against Miami, because I think a lot of the issues that you saw in Miami were tackling, like the yards after catch. What was it? 200 and something yards after catch. Like that can't happen. They were out of position. They were trying to arm tackle. It was just a poor display of tackling. But outside of the Auburn game, A&M has not shown an ability to cause chaos in the backfield, getting to the quarterbacks. They had 6 sacks going into that game, a couple against Tyler Van Dyke, but they hadn't done that. And then against Auburn, who had a horrendous offense, and really they threw the ball 5 times in the second half. That showed up, and I hadn't seen that from a DJ Durkin defense, because last year we didn't see it either. This team has also not forced a lot of turnovers. So my confidence level is not super elite. Now, I do have a lot of confidence in the defensive line being able to stop the run, even if Rocket Sanders comes back. He is awesome, and of course he'll be healthy for that game, because that's just the way it goes. But I think the A&M defense has done a much better job at stopping runs, and I think we'll see that. Can they get to the quarterback? Absolutely. KJ Jefferson's gone down 8 times the last 2 games, so they can get to the quarterback. I just need more data points, to be honest with you, to be fully bought in that this defense has turned that corner. But to me, it's kind of like the LSU game was for A&M last year offensively, with Devon, who's no longer there, doing huge things for the Dolphins. It showed you what this team can be. I think that game is a reflection of when things are on point, and DJ Durkin does get aggressive, something we haven't seen a lot of. They can certainly cause a lot of chaos. What I worry about is both happening, being able to attack quarterbacks, and what does that mean for the back end? Can the back end cover long enough and make the tackles?
Do you think that, as someone that Arkansas fans know all about, Bobby Petrino, do you think he's getting enough respect nationally? Because, hey, everybody made the jokes. They mocked it relentlessly. What in the world is Jimbo doing? They're going to be at each other's throats. Will Jimbo even be the coach by A&M? Because Bobby's going to backstab him and steal the job. There's been none of that. Not only has there been none of that, but the offense has gone from a weakness or underperforming, to put it kindly, to one of the best in the SEC. Is Bobby Petrino getting enough credit for the impact that he's had on that program?
I think he's getting a lot of credit, but I think the credit goes first to Connor, right? Because Connor was on all these national shows where people were talking about. Jordan Rogers was talking about him on SEC Nation. A lot of guys have been focusing on Connor, which to me is a direct reflection of Bobby Petrino. So maybe his name is not being thrown out there as much as maybe we'd like to see, but it's about to be, because, again, what you saw Max Johnson do in the second half against Auburn, and again, that game should have been a blowout at the half, but it wasn't. The A&M offense was not clicking. Conner Weigman was not on. But we've seen this now 2 different times from a Bobby Petrino A&M team. At the half, there should be more points. A&M did not score a lot of points in the first half. They really struggled to move the ball against Miami. At the half, they made adjustments, and they moved the ball left and right. They just couldn't stop anybody. Auburn, same story. They're up 6-3. Auburn's got a chance to take the lead. The defense forces the 3 and out. What do? They go down and score with Jake Johnson. What do after that? They go on and they throw over the top to Evans, who scores a touchdown. So what I have been most impressed by from Bobby Petrino is his halftime adjustments. I asked Jimbo about it this week. He said it's not really halftime adjustments. It's maybe showing these players what's actually there that they may not be seeing. Whatever they want to call it, it's working at the half. And I think just like all these SEC games, you're going to have to see a lot of that against Arkansas because these games come down to the wire. There's no doubt about it this series, but just the series in general in the SEC. So what Bobby Petrino does at the half against Arkansas, to me, will be key. And if Max Johnson throws for 300, 3 touchdowns, I think you'll be hearing a lot about Bobby Petrino.
Now, A&M has completely owned this series, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this because Arkansas fans, they're done with Jerry World. They don't ever want to play in Arlington again. It's a house of horrors for them. I'm just curious, what about the A&M fans? Would they like to see this game return to Kyle Field, or are they happy with the status quo?
I think there's a little bit of both, but more back to campus. And the reason I said a little bit of both, it is kind of cool to go to the Metroplex. And look, it doesn't have the same luster of Texas OU. We recognize that. But it is cool to go there and play in that environment. But I've never been to Fayetteville. I want to go. I know what that environment could do. I saw what it did to the University of Texas a couple of years ago and really derailed their entire season after that point. I'm excited about that atmosphere because I love SEC passion and the students being on campus and what that can do. And I think most A&M fans are ready for that. That being said, Jimbo actually talked about that this week. I think for programs that, especially with the expanded playoffs, to play in that environment, the neutral site, big stadium, big dome area things is a good thing. Maybe not an SEC play, but I think maybe in some non-conference games, that is very good to prepare you for that environment because it is different than going to campus. All that being said, I think most Aggie fans are ready for it to move to Kyle Field, and we'll see it here in a couple of years.
So last week, KJ seemed to be getting a lot more comfortable in Dan Enos' system. I thought he had his best game against LSU at night, shootout-style game. What's your thoughts on the matchup and who wins it, A&M, Arkansas in Arlington?
I'm leaning more towards A&M. And look, I that's not a shot at Arkansas. This is what worries me more than anything about Arkansas is that they have tinkered with the offense to do what KJ likes to do more, right? So we're seeing more of that, and more of that means more offensive output for Arkansas. And I already told you about the A&M secondary. So there's that. Rocket Sanders coming back. The most important thing that I think is happening for Arkansas is I'm not saying that they're playing for their season, but it kind of feels like they're playing for their season. They lost to BYU. They lost this past weekend to LSU. And now what, right? So, like, if they lose 3 in a row, what does that mean to them and Sam Pittman long term? There's a lot of still football to be played for both of these programs. But I feel like A&M, can they battle back from a loss to Arkansas with their backup quarterback, Max Johnson? Sure, but it's still not going to be the season everybody envisioned. I think you lose 3 in a row and still what's ahead for Arkansas, it could be very dangerous. I'm leaning more towards A&M because, let's face it, if not now, when, right? Like this series the last couple of years has come down to the wire. I know, to be honest with you, 2 years ago, Arkansas kicked A&M's butt. But A&M was able to stick around long enough. Zach Calzada, that offense did not move the ball at all. It was a 17-0 within the first quarter and a half. And A&M did make it a game, got it down to 17-10 with an offense that wasn't moving. And then Arkansas was able to knock it out. But last year, the worst A&M team we've seen in forever. You could say that Arkansas gave that game to A&M, and they certainly did. The touchdown from KJ, the fumble from KJ that turned out to be the Damani Richardson touchdown. And, of course, they missed a field goal with a chance to win. Let's not forget A&M missed a field goal right before that as well. But if that was the worst A&M team that we've seen in years and they were able to win, I tend to think that the talent is going to be superior at A&M, and they should be able to. But, again, I am such a KJ Jefferson believer. I'm a Sam Pittman believer. But if that offensive line doesn't take another big step, A&M's defense might be able to feast. But, of course, Rockets coming back. The offensive line will magically gel, and it will be a shootout, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I can't thank you enough to coming on the show, previewing what Brent Zerneman has once called on this show the David Nuno SEC Mike Bowl. So before you go, can you tell my audience where can they find you and where can they follow your work over at TexAgs?
Yeah, so I'm at TexAgs.com, the director of broadcast media for what we do. So I host a show Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. I also host another show we do called Up to the Second College Football that Mike is going to be featured. That drops Wednesday afternoon. So, look, and on Twitter, David Nuno, on Instagram, David Nuno TV. I am so privileged to do this for a living. I did local television for a long time in Houston, and I got to go to my alma mater and talk SEC football where it matters. It says it just means more. Trust me, I've covered NFL teams. I've traveled with NFL teams. I've gone around with the World Series. That matters, but there's nothing like SEC football. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to be on your show and talk a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, so great stuff from David and Ty. Thank you both so much for joining the show. Man, they got me fired up for this one.
Oh, I love it, man. I can't wait. We got so many great games. This one's separation.
I could have picked any of the games to do the interviews,
We could have done Kentucky, Florida. Don't worry. Those guys are going to get their shots.
Yeah.
Who's the other good one that's going on?
South Carolina,
Tennessee. Yeah, obviously.
LSU, Ole Miss.
Oh, man. So much good football. And there is going to be a little separation this weekend. So I'm not saying everything's on the line, but it almost feels like it is for these guys,
right.
Because we've all had those rainbows and butterfly ideas of what our program can be.
Right.
But then the cold, dark reality, the grim reaper is coming to your campus Saturday. So let's just see how it plays out. But I'm going to be soaking up every second of it.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, buddy, I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.